email. Members, if you are able, please activate your video and keep it on for the duration of the meeting. Staff, if you are able, please activate your video when you are speaking. All panelists, that is alders, commission members, and staff, have the ability to mute and unmute themselves. Commission members, please continue to use the raise hand feature when you'd like to be recognized to speak, ask questions, or request a roll call vote. Lowering your hand will take you out of the queue. Members of the public who have registered to speak, the name you entered in Zoom must match the name you entered in registration. You will remain muted until called upon. The clerk will tell you when your time is up. After speaking, a member of the body may ask you a question. If you need to share documentation with the body, please send it to the email listed on today's agenda. Chair Donnelly, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Mr. Verbeek, will you please, I'm sorry, I've even got my list here. I'm getting it out of order. I call this meeting of the Alcohol License Review Committee to order at 5:38 p.m. Mr. Verbeek, will you please call the roll?
Skidmore.
Here.
Skidmore here. Verveer.
Here.
Verveer here. Canospino is excused. Reese.
Here.
Reese here. Westra.
Here.
Westra here. Donnelly.
Present.
Donnelly here. Grady.
Here.
Grady here. Carter.
Present.
Carter here. Fletcher.
Yeah.
Fletcher here. Chair, we have quorum.
Thank you very much. First order of business is approval of the minutes from our November 18th, 2020 meeting. Committee, what's your pleasure?
Move approval. Second.
I hear a motion and a second from Ms. Westra and Alder Carter. Any discussion or corrections? Hearing none. Anyone in opposition, raise your hand either physically or virtually to signal we should do a roll call vote. Seeing none, motion passes. Item 1, public comment. Do we have anyone registered for public comment?
I do not see anyone register for general public comment.
Okay. So, next item, disclosures and recusals. So, where are we? Members of the body should make any required disclosures or recusals under the city's ethics code. Are there any such disclosures? I'll disclose I'm a member of the Tenney Lapham Neighborhood Association Council. That will not affect anything about item 9, which is in our district. Okay, don't see anybody else. So next up is presentation of the consent agenda. Mr. Verbeek. And since he's having bandwidth problems, I'm also going to share what this looks like. So it's easier for people to know what's up. Jim, you with us? Okay. I'll go through and read off the items that are on the consent agenda. Members of the committee are welcome to request that any item be separated for any reason or no reason at all. Item 2, change of agent for Monty's Blue Plate Diner. Proposed action is to grant. Item 3, change of agent for Robinia Courtyard. Proposed action is to grant. Item 4, appearance as the condition of license for Nile Restaurant. Proposed action is to place on file without prejudice because the establishment will be closing. Item 6, 6, Frey Millers on Cottage Grove Road. Proposed action is to place on file without prejudice because we have contact from the landlord that they have no lease. Item 8, new license for Mini Mart on West Badger. Proposed action is to refer to the January ALRC meeting. Item 9, new license for Hone at 708 Nequater East Johnson. Proposed action is to grant. And item 10, new license for Mommy Dumpling and Ramen at 901 Willie Street. And proposed action to grant. Committee, are there any items you'd like to remove? Assistant City Attorney Zellaby.
9 and 10, please.
Anything else?
Are you able to hear me? Hello?
We can now, yes.
I will add that there is a register for number 8, which is on the consent agenda to refer to January. I know that was the Alder's recommendation, Alder Carter's recommendation to refer to January. So I don't know if Attorney Trachtenberg want to add anything, knowing that it's going to be referred to next month, if we want to call on him briefly, or if we want to just remove it from the consent agenda.
Why don't we call on him briefly and ask him if he would like it to be referred as part of the consent agenda or separated? Those are the options at this point. While we're pulling him up, is there anything anybody else would like separated?
I don't see Attorney Trachtenberg in the attendee list. There are 3 phone numbers. None of them are showing up as matching to what's in the registration list. I can go through and start unmuting people and seeing who they are. It's possible someone registered under a different phone number than they're calling from right now. I wouldn't know that.
And it does look like he actually registered twice, and the first one was registered to speak on the 11th, but then he registered again today at 4:41 as support not wishing to speak. So it's probably very likely that he's not one of the people in attendance.
Okay. If it turns out that at the end of the meeting, he's still in there and wants to have more discussion, we could have a motion to reconsider if someone is interested in doing so. Are there any other items people would like separated from the consent agenda? Hearing none, is there a motion to take the proposed action for items 2, 3, 4, 6, and 8? Mr. Grady, and a second from Mr. Fletcher. Any discussion? Hearing none, anyone in opposition indicate that we should do a roll call? And seeing none, motion passes. Which brings us, or actually, Mr. Verbeek, would you like to formally read off was that a head shake?
Yes, I'll read the consent agenda. So the past consent agenda for ALRC meeting December 16, 2020, recommended council to grant item number 2, change of agent 2089 Inc. Number 3, change of agent Rabinia LLC. Number 8, refer to January ALRC meeting. Number 8, public hearing new license, minority owned business LLC at 714 West Badger Road, Class A beer, Class A liquor, Class A cider. Recommend the council to place on file without prejudice. Item number 4, appearance as a condition of the license to evaluate license conditions, 21 plus entertainment license, Mohammed Hinoui, 6119 Odana Road. And item number 6, public hearing new license, KMKF LLC, 521 Cottage Grove Road, Class B combination liquor and beer.
Thank you very much. If you are here for one of those items, your item has been dealt with and you are welcome to take the rest of the evening off. Okay, moving on. Item 5. Item 5, appearance as a condition of license, 21 plus entertainment license for Soto at 303 North Henry Street. And we have Susan McKinney registered, neither support nor opposed, does not wish to speak, but is available to answer questions. Do we have?
She is the applicant.
Okay, I was going to say, I think we do have questions for you then, Ms. McKinney.
Hello?
Hello, how are you tonight?
Okay. I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. So can you give us a quick review of how things are going at Soto?
Yes, things are quiet. We've been closed since March, except for the second week of June. We opened for that weekend, and since then, Soto has been closed.
Is that a pun on the name?
I don't get it.
Soto voce? Never mind. Anyway.
Oh, I speak Spanish, not, sorry, not Italian or whatever.
So committee, what questions do you have for Ms. McKinney? Mr. Verbeek, can you give us the history of this condition?
Sure. So let's see. First off, the license has not actually even been issued yet. So there's not really any business even to speak of, even in the quiet climate that currently is. Let me see. Yeah, and since it's not issued, there's not really a license to show you because there is no license. But the conditions that were on the license, I think for this one, was just to appear at the ALRC in December 2021 meeting. There were no additional conditions beyond that.
Well, then this might be quite easy. Does anyone have any questions or concerns that were the reason why you requested that? Oh, Alder Carter.
Yeah, I'm not the one that requested this, but did I hear you right to say that you were open 1 week? Did you say this summer, but you don't have a license?
Oh,
And that's to the applicant.
yeah, the license, we had the license in June. I understand that I intend to collect the license. I had let it, anyway, I have inspections lined up, and I'm going to collect the license before I had my 6 months in January. And then I have established my own LLC, and I'm going to surrender this license and then apply for a new license for my own LLC to apply the license to that. And so I expect I would see you again.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Alder Carter. Assistant City Attorney Zellaby.
I think maybe the reason why this was referred for an appearance was because at the time that she applied under TGRM LLC, I had a pending prosecution against TGRM LLC. That prosecution is now concluded, and my concern is her changing the LLC is to get out from under the forfeiture that was assessed pursuant to that prosecution. At the time, I think there were 2 different court dates, and I both called the liquor beer agent and emailed her on more than one occasion to try and settle the case and never heard anything back. So that is that information for TGRM LLC, and I think that's why it was referred for an appearance.
So can you tell us the details of the forfeiture that resulted from that case?
I don't have the file at home with me anymore, but I think it was around $1,200–1,300. Nobody, I had to do a default judgment since nobody appeared.
Sure. Well, at this point, the establishment is not operating.
Correct.
And if the agent goes and picks up the license, they could start operating. And if under the current LLC, if the forfeiture isn't paid, there's action that could be taken. And if she comes in as she told us and applies for a new license, that can all be part of the discussion at that time, correct?
Correct.
Do you think there's anything we need to take care of tonight as a result of this?
I don't think so.
Excellent. Thank you for the background. Alder Revere.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to add additional information that I did speak with Ms. McKinney yesterday, and her understanding of the Madison Municipal Court prosecution was that it was dropped by the city. So obviously there was a communication gap, and it would be helpful, I think, for Attorney Zillaby and Ms. McKinney to open the line of communication and let Ms. McKinney move to reopen the case. Potentially, obviously, it's up to the judge if that might happen. But we did. Ms. McKinney did raise the issue with me yesterday when we talked about both this appearance and her future appearance, most likely at our February meeting. And again, she was fully under the impression, and maybe it was because of, I don't know, Attorney Zillaby, if you were dealing with Ted Gervasi or not, or who you were dealing with exactly or trying to communicate with, or the court was trying to communicate with. But again, we could ask her if it's an issue for any of you tonight, but she indeed was under the impression that the underage long-form complaint violations had been dismissed on a motion by the city. And I just would say that if in order, Mr. Chair, perhaps we should hear that directly from the applicant, so there's not a doubt, and I don't want it to come secondhand from me. Could I ask Ms. McKinney to please articulate her understanding of the prosecution and why she felt it had been dismissed by the city?
Of course.
Am I on? Can you hear me? Okay. I did think that was the case. I can't say that I've looked into it or gone to court records or anything to make sure that was true. And so if I'm wrong, I apologize. And I'd be very happy to communicate with Assistant Attorney Zillaby to do whatever needs to be done.
All right. Thank you, Ms. McKinney. Alder Revere, do you see that as something that should happen during this meeting or out of band?
I see, Mr. Chair, that Attorney Zillaby's asked to raise her hand, so perhaps we can just hear from her and then move on to the next agenda item.
By all means.
Thank you.
Assistant City Attorney Zillaby.
Actually, it's probably not necessary to have the discussion in front of the ALRC at this point.
Okay. Sounds good. Ms. McKinney, strongly recommend reaching out to Assistant City Attorney Zillaby to have a more in-depth discussion. Committee, I will entertain a motion to, somebody help me out, acknowledge the appearance. We have to do something because there's an item on the agenda, but there isn't really any action for us to take.
Can we refer this to 6 months from now? Well, never mind. That'll be license renewal anyways. So I move that we acknowledge their appearance.
So moved. Do I hear a second? Mr. Grady, any discussion? Mr. Fletcher.
Mr. Chair, would that also
come with the removal of the condition from the license, given that we're indicating that it has been met?
Well, the condition was to appear at this meeting tonight, and it appears that that condition has indeed been met. So, yes.
Good. I'm just clarifying. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fletcher. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Fletcher again? Oh, sorry. Okay. Hearing none. Anyone in opposition, raise your hand. Seeing no opposition, motion passes for item 5. Item 7, Quick Trip doing business as Stop and Go at 2002 Winnebago Street. This is a new license. And we've got a bunch of people here to speak on this item. Is the applicant here?
Yeah, the applicant would be David Ring.
Okay, why don't we let him go first, and then we can go through all of the other people who are registered.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members of the ALRC committee, appreciate the opportunity to present before you tonight. Here to ask for support of our Class A beer and Class A cider license for our store 1515 located at 2002 Winnebago Street. I know this was deferred at the last ALRC meeting so that we could have a neighborhood discussion, which we did last Thursday, December 10th. The discussion was wide-ranging, in-depth, regarding the post office that P.O. boxes, postal service that was terminated inside that store due to primarily for space requirements. It's about 2,600 square feet. Our normal store is about 7,500 square feet. So we need the additional space for merchandising, equipment, product selection, etc. So we certainly took into account, and I still are. We have not made a decision that because the space next to us was part of the sale, and that space is currently occupied by a laundromat, and that lease will terminate in April of 2021. So in about 4.5 months, and we have plans once that lease terminates to expand into that space. And as I told the neighborhood association meeting, we'll certainly share that planogram, which is certainly in the planning stages right now, which will showcase how we're going to utilize that additional space. It was certainly brought up that the alcohol license is a privilege, and we certainly agree and recognize that it is and take it very seriously as far as our training, both online and in person in our secret shopper program. We are asking to sell just the same products that were sold by Stop and Go. We acquired the Stop and Go company, and that store will continue to operate as a Stop and Go branded store. So again, we're only asking to sell beer and cider as was previously sold by Stop and Go. We're not asking for an expansion of it. One of the questions that was raised is, are we planning to add additional coolers or liquor selection? And that has yet to be determined too. I'm not trying to be coy. I told the neighborhood, I'll certainly share that with the LRC once the planogram is completed as it's being worked on presently. I also informed the neighborhood association that the store hours currently are 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. We're just reduced so that we're closing now at 6 p.m. rather than 10 p.m. for the next 2 to 3 weeks, simply for staffing and training purposes. We opened the store late last week, so there's a lot of things you can imagine going on in the store. I also informed them that we plan on making this a more of a small neighborhood grocery store. We're going to be offering a meat case with variety of meat selections, also be offering take-home meals so that it can truly be a convenience store. People can pick up meals and take them home. I've also been in discussions with the Madison Postmaster office, asking if they could place a mailbox outside the store. And that's being looked into, and I have not heard back. I communicated with them last Thursday, and I'm still waiting to hear back from the Postmaster office. They said they would certainly consider it and follow up with us, and I'll certainly make everybody aware of it once I do receive communication from them. We do sell stamps. I made that aware the neighborhood association aware of that. I certainly know taking out the P.O. boxes, removing the postal service is a huge inconvenience. That postal service has been inside that store for anywhere from 15 to 20 years. It was previously located in the building behind it, and I'd asked the question, not knowing the history. That post office was moved out of that building because the organization in there expanded. Then it was brought into the Stop and Go store. So I guess there was an email that Alder Rummel was kind enough to convene the neighborhood association meeting on last Thursday, December 10th, had issued. And I just kind of want to clarify a couple of points in there. One of them that she said that the post office was taken out because it was too labor intensive. That's a small part of it. The majority of it was, again, due to a function of the square footage that's necessary for us to operate a convenience store and provide the proper equipment, racking and product. And also it was noted that, and I had agreed with Joel Gratz and some of the other people that I'm sure are going to speak tonight that, could we have done a better job in communicating in advance about the post office? Certainly. I know in speaking with Andy Bowman, the previous owner of Stop and Go, they were planning on terminating the post office services themselves. And we had agreed to came to the same conclusion based again on the square footage that was necessary. So we certainly want to be good corporate citizens and good partners in the neighborhood. Obviously, we don't know the neighborhood that well. We just acquired the store about a week ago, but certainly look forward to working closely with the neighborhood association, Alder Rummel, to be good neighbors. And we're certainly looking into other options that may be available as we acquire the additional space in the laundromat. Maybe a self-service kiosk potentially. Again, nothing's been finalized. We're still in the discussion phase and certainly open to further discussions and communications with both the ALRC and the neighborhood association. So appreciate your time and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, David. Committee, what questions do you have for the applicant? Okay, so let us start hearing from members of the neighborhood. Oh, I'm sorry, Alder Carter.
You can unmute yourself, Alder.
Yeah. So Dave, you mentioned the fact that you are expanding into the laundromat.
Right.
Was there any, what feedback did you have regarding the laundromat going away?
I think a few people mentioned, and they can certainly speak more clearly than I can. I think that's been obviously a convenient service that they like in the neighborhood. I didn't hear a tremendous amount of pushback against it, but again, it's still in the early phases.
Right. So it was more on the post office, basically, than the laundromat. Okay. Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you, Alder Carter. Any other questions? Okay, moving on to other registered speakers. I didn't touch on this at the beginning of the meeting, so I will now. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes. In addition to that time, members of the committee can ask you questions and you can respond to those questions. I would recommend that you consider what has been said by other speakers before you and try to make distinct points. All that being said, let's hear first from Joel Gratz.
Hi, thank you again for letting me speak again. I obviously was here at last month's meeting. I continue to ask the committee to oppose this license at this time. We've heard again, and I think everyone has my written testimony, so I'll try to be brief, but that, Quick Trip making presentations that they are a good community member and neighbor and certainly have cited, positive things they generally do. But they also, really have not demonstrated, I think, the good citizenship elements in this location. As Mr. Ring pointed out, they really failed to work with the neighborhood early on in their process and only, have tried to respond to some of the concerns about the post office now here at the 11th hour when they want the privilege of selling alcohol. They announced their intent to buy these stores in July. There was lots of time for them to engage with the neighborhood, help the neighborhood, the alder, maybe the congressman's office find another location for the post office if that was their intent. But instead, they did not seek to, inform anyone of their intent to close this post office until, this late date when it's, becomes quite an inconvenience. So, I think they have not shown the element of being a good citizen. Last meeting, several of the ALRC members certainly indicated they didn't think the post office discussion was relevant at all. And I would say that it's relevant for two things. First of all, when Quick Trip or any applicant brings up and touts their good deeds or their community commitment, we need to be examine whether that's true and accurate in this instance. And I don't think it is here. I understand, it's a business decision. They have the right to terminate and not continue the post office, but they should have engaged with people months ago rather than, only when they're asked, only when people pressure them at this late date. Second, and lastly, I think it's relevant because it shows, how they may interact and engage with the community if there are problems with their license and their alcohol sales in the future. I think we'll hear later from some other members of the community who are concerned about another location so close to a neighborhood high school and question whether we should have alcohol sales. I'm kind of indifferent there, but I worry that, their failure to engage the neighborhood and community properly early on may be indicative of what may happen later if a problem arises. So I think we should consider it for that reason. There's more in my document. I certainly am open to questions, but continue to urge you to oppose this.
Excellent. Thank you for your comments, Mr. Gratz, and also for your detailed email. Committee members, what questions do you have for Mr. Gratz? Okay, next registrant is Katrina Gilliam, in opposition, available to answer questions. Wendy Beckman, in opposition, not wishing to speak. Celeste Robbins, in opposition, not wishing to speak. Kay Haggerty, in opposition, not wishing to speak. Imhan Huseman, in opposition, not wishing to speak. Marina Kelly, in opposition, not wishing to speak. Manny Wagnitz, in opposition, not wishing to speak. And Gay Thomas, in opposition, not wishing to speak. Are there any registrants that came in after 5:10 p.m.?
No.
Excellent. Mr. Grady.
And one of those registrants that did want to speak, confirm what they're in opposition about. I mean, is it the post office? Is that what they're concerned with?
Let's see. Well,
Chair, we do have we do have a late registrant, Harry Richardson from Few Street, in opposition, wishing to speak.
Excellent. Well, let's hear from him, and perhaps he can answer Mr. Grady's question as well.
Yes. Thanks very much for giving me a couple minutes to speak. I'm very concerned about both the laundromat and the beer license and the closing of the post office. I guess that's 3 items. I'm sorry. The main point of more people not bringing up the laundromat was that it was just kind of dropped on us at the meeting. If I had known about that, I would have mentioned that in my talk at the SASE meeting. But anyway, I oppose both of those as being closed as important services to maintain in the community. I have had some experience working at a stop and go. It is not a family wage, living wage job. despite what the speaker has said that runs this new facility, this is just not this is not a very good job for people. This is a reduction in services to the community. This post office boxes have been there for 25 years. It will hurt small businesses. It will hurt local nonprofits. It will hurt local people in the neighborhood, especially people with mobility problems. The closing of the laundromat is unjustified. That helps a lot of people in the neighborhood as well. People that are low income, people that don't have laundry facilities in their building or a washer dryer in their building. Both of those are bad ways to start off on the building, or bad ways for this business to start off. And the city should use its authority to withhold this liquor license, beer and hard cider license, unless the business continues these services, these important services to the community. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Mr. Grady, has your question been answered?
Yes, I believe it has. I understand what their concerns are now. Thank you.
Excellent. Ms. Westra?
I have a question for staff. Jim, do they have any restrictions on the current stop and go license?
That's a good question. Let me look that up. No, there are no conditions on that license.
Okay. When we're ready, I'll have a motion.
Excellent. Thank you, Ms. Westra. I have a question for Assistant City Attorney Brest. So the purview of the Alcohol License Review Committee, as we've discussed at many points in the past, is to look out for the health, safety, and welfare of the community when evaluating whether it's appropriate to issue an alcohol license. Do you have any guidance for us regarding the comments we've received about this application?
I think that the health, safety, and welfare is the standard, as you said, and that is in regard to the sale of alcohol beverages. I think it's your judgment whether or not you want to expand that to something else, but generally we're looking at whether or not they're properly selling alcohol beverages, and the other decisions that they make in their business place are not necessarily under the purview of the committee in that way. The health, safety, and welfare is more related to safety issues, selling to underage people, overconsumption issues, those types of alcohol issues, rather than whether or not there's a laundromat.
Thank you, Assistant City Attorney Brest. Ms. Westra, do you have another comment, or is your hand up from before?
My hand's up from before.
Okay. Alder Skidmore.
Thank you. I'll make this quick. Thank you, Attorney Brist. I agree, and I don't think that we have a compelling reason to deny a otherwise acceptable license based on something that's not our purview. This falls into the category of mission creep, and I don't think that this committee has done that yet, although I know other committees have. So I will be supporting this.
Thank you, Alder Skidmore. Alder Carter.
Thank you. And I agree also with Alder Skidmore. You know, it's difficult when you have a service. I'm going to quote one of the the participants, you have a service for 25 years, you get used to it, and you expect it to be there for 25 more. But this is a business decision, not only by the post office, but also a business decision by the laundromat also. And so combining those two decisions, our charge is not to overreach. And we're here to grant or deny a license, but not to overrun a business decision by property owners who are not here.
Okay, thank you, Alder Carter. I don't see anybody else in the queue. So Ms. Wester, would you like to make a motion now?
Yep, I'd like to move approval.
Your motion to approve, is there a second? Alder Skidmore, any discussion? All right, hearing none. Mr. Verbeek, will you please call the roll?
Westra?
Aye.
Westra, aye. Grady?
Yes.
Grady, aye. Reese?
Aye.
Reese, aye. Skidmore?
Aye.
Skidmore, aye. Revere?
Aye.
Revere, aye. Fletcher?
Aye.
Fletcher, aye. Carter?
Aye.
Carter, aye. That is 7 yes, no opposition.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Verbeek. Motion to grant item 7 passes. Next up is item 9, application for a new license, Hone at 708 Anaquater East Johnson Street. And we have Michael Parks registered. Is Mr. Park, and is here. Mr. Parks, will you please tell us a bit about your proposed business?
Hi, I'm Michael Parks. I'm opening Hone on 708 and a quarter East Johnson Street. It's going to be focused primarily on comfort food from around the world, to-go food, mostly during the daytime hours and into the early evening. And then we're hoping to expand throughout the evening and even into breakfast at later times. And then we're also going to, on Saturdays and potentially more days of the week, depending on demand, do more of a formal service where it'll be like a ticketed dinner reservation and explore different regions of the world and the types of food that they have for people that are looking for a little bit of travel from home.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Mr. Fletcher.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Michael, on question 26, can you clarify the final answer on live entertainment?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, so I was saying, like, within the reasons that it says right there, you know, like, you can have like one acoustic person playing violin or something. I could see we could potentially do that. You know, but I didn't really think about, so no, we're not applying for entertainment.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Fletcher. Committee, what other questions do you have for the applicant? Alder Verveer.
Thank you. I see in Alderperson Heck's memo to the committee regarding this item that at the Jenny Lapham Neighborhood Association Council meeting, there was a request that we add a condition on the license that you cease the service of alcohol served by midnight. Is that your understanding?
So as it was presented to me in the Zoom meeting that we had for discussion, Alder Heck had said that, you guys might ask a question about staying open to 2:30. And then, Johnny Hunter, the neighborhood association president, had brought that specific issue. I didn't hear from any community members to that effect, but if that is something that you guys think there's a compelling reason for me to do, then I'm happy to do that. We're trying to get the business up and running and started. So ideally, we wouldn't have any restrictions on our license other than what the city and state generally requires. But I'm more than happy to make if the ALRC committee, if that makes them more comfortable, and we readdress the situation sometime down the road if guests and neighborhood members would like to have later service hours. But I just haven't heard any concerns to that effect, especially since to start for opening, we're really only going to be able to afford to be 3 p.m. to 10 p.m. just for staffing reasons until we can train up the quality of service that we need and even see if there's value there. I think most of the value is going to be moving towards lunch for us just because of the nature of to-go service and stuff, and with people doing remote working more often. I think that's kind of where we're going to concentrate. I mean, we'll see what 2021 has in store. 2020 has been a interesting year, so lots of changes there. But that's, I guess I defer to the ALRC if that's something that they need. But I think the nature of our business with being more food focused, and when we do spirits, it'll be more high end and targeted spirits that are more allocated and stuff like that. So though the prices will be higher for alcohol, the volume will be significantly lower.
Alder Verveer, I can shed a little bit of light on that. The most recent Tenny Lapham Neighborhood Association Council meeting was before the neighborhood meeting. So the discussion and vote that the council held was over email, which makes it perfectly understandable why the applicant would not have been privy to the details of that.
Thank you. So what you're saying, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate your personal knowledge of this.
Yes, well, thank you.
As you disclosed at the top of the meeting, so it is your understanding that the TLNA council vote in support did come with the recommended condition that either the business closed by midnight each night or that the sale of alcohol ceases by midnight each night?
Yes.
Oh, well, in that case, then I'm happy to meet. I mean, they're my neighbors. I want to make sure that they're happy. So then that makes perfect sense to me, and I'll work with them in the future. And, if need be, or if it's just something that the neighborhood wants at a later date, then I want to be there to accommodate.
It's certainly been common in the past that when people have earlier hours, when an establishment opens, if there isn't any trouble and they come back to have it later, neighbors generally don't object.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah, thank you. So I was just going to, I appreciate your willingness, Mr. Parks, and it sounds like you hadn't seen Alderperson Heck's memo. It is, if you go to the ALRC agenda for this meeting and click on your item, you'll see that it is attached in what we call the Legistar website. And just to read it, the couple of sentences, and I realize that they're not disputing or agreeing to this, but I'm wondering how we would structure a possible condition if it would be closure at midnight or ceasing alcohol sales by midnight. But
I would much prefer just ceasing alcohol sales at midnight, just because we would like to be able to, feed people when they would like to eat.
Yeah, so let me just read quickly these three sentences. I believe TLNA council voted to support the license application, but with the condition that the business close at midnight each night. I agree with that suggested condition, recognizing that the applicant could later return to ALRC to request an extension of hours once the restaurant component is well established. I, however, again, this being the alder of the district, would be comfortable with the business staying open past midnight if alcohol sales end at midnight. So, and obviously that's your wish as well, Mr. Parks. So just on the record, because it is your statutory right, if the license is granted to you by the city to stay open till statutory bar time, you are voluntarily agreeing to cease alcohol service by midnight, 7 days a week.
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
Okay, yeah, I mean, you've said that already, just wanted to confirm.
Yeah. I mean, I'm obviously apprehensive and worried about any restriction on the business given the current climate, but, a delay would also be as catastrophic. And so, I'd rather make sure that we're meeting the desires of the neighborhood.
Thank you. We appreciate that. And obviously you're an experienced operator in terms of your involvement in the industry, as I've come to understand. And so I certainly personally have no concern. I'm just trying to follow the recommendation of my common council colleague.
Yes, sir.
And so I appreciate your responses and certainly wish you the best of luck and every success with this establishment. And I thank you, Mr. Chair, for your personal knowledge of the workings of the neighborhood association there and their specific recommendation.
Of course. So
thank you, Alder Donnelly.
Thank you, Alder Revere. What other questions do people have for the applicant? All right, hearing none, any discussion?
Go ahead. Make the motion as just discussed. So I would move to formally grant the combination Class B alcohol license with the condition that alcohol service cease nightly by midnight.
All right, I'll motion from Alder Revere. I see a second from Ms. Westra. Any discussion? Hearing none, anyone in opposition indicate by raising their hand. Seeing none, motion on item 9 to grant with conditions passes.
Who seconded that one?
Ms. Westra.
Okay, thank you.
Of course. Next up is, and Mr. Parks, I look forward to checking out the food at a new place in my neighborhood. Next up is item 10, new license for Umami at 901 Willie Street. And I see we've got Michael Ding here. So Mr. Ding, can you tell us what you're going to be doing?
Yes, hi, everyone. So this is going to be just a more takeout and delivery friendly model of Umami. Umami's been closed since March, ever since the pandemic started. The space itself, where Umami is currently located, just isn't set up well to do the takeout and delivery. We plan to reopen that location hopefully in April or May, depending on what things look like at that point, for traditional dine-in, we hope. The space on 901 Williamson Street has an entry area as well as an exit area that are in two kind of separate rooms. So what that allows for us is just to have people come in one way, pick up their orders, and then be able to exit through another room, through another door. So that would prevent cross traffic. As far as the store itself, you can kind of think of it as a more counter service, like Asian deli is how I would categorize it. So it would have some of our umami kind of favorites, such as ramen, rice bowls, dumplings. We will be adding other items on the menu, including sushi, and there will be a grab and go area that we think would be helpful for people working in the area to come in and either pick up something fast or order online for pickup. And then on top of that, there will be some meal kits that we would create. We're going to plan to bottle some of our sauces that we use both at Umami and Taverna Kai and offer those for sale. And then there will be a small, grocery section, or maybe you wouldn't call it grocery section, but just an area where you'll have some Asian snacks, drinks, condiments, and specialty kind of cooking ingredients for people wishing to kind of make their meals at home. So what I would think of it as would be sort of like a corner store, which did inhabit that space 10 years ago when we first opened Umami. I remember going in there. So it's kind of like a more modern version of that type of corner store. And as far as the alcohol sales, it really, even with our businesses now, we notice that for takeout and to go, we do get customers that, will order, a couple of bottles of beer or a bottle of wine with their order. But right now we're seeing that number to be probably, somewhere between 5 and 7% of sales. I don't envision alcohol sales to be a large revenue driver for this particular operation, but we will offer, maybe like some take home, cocktail kits, or what we have is sakatini kits, as well as bottles of wine and sake for people wishing to add that to their meal.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Mr. Ding. Committee, what questions do you have for the applicant? So we heard from the neighborhood, or we heard from the alder that while the neighborhood association hasn't had the opportunity to meet, the relevant committee did and was unanimously in support, and she does not anticipate neighbor concerns, particularly given the experience of the applicant in this neighborhood. So any discussion or a motion?
I move approval.
And is second? All right, we've got a motion from Alder Carter to approve, second from Ms. Reese. Any discussion? Hearing none. Anyone in opposition indicate by raising your hand. No opposition. Motion, it passes. Congratulations, Mr. Ding.
Thank you.
A place I'll look forward to shopping at. Okay, item 11, license transfer. So this is transferring Square Wine Company from 5 North Pinckney to 1 East Main, Suite 100. And item 11, we've got Andrea Helsey here in support, wishing to speak. Andrea, can you tell us about this move, please?
Yes, of course. Thank you guys for obviously taking the time, though you're probably required to be here. So my name is Andrea. I have owned and operated Square Wine Company. We opened back in 2012, and we are currently kind of set to be displaced with the new ULI redevelopment of our block. And we have worked really closely with ULI to find us a new space literally just around the corner. And we're hopeful to hopefully move in January. And I just want the ALRC to understand it and to know that we'll essentially be operating the same as we have since we opened in 2012. So I'm happy to obviously take any questions that anyone may have, but it's hopefully a boring transfer.
We have no problem with boring. Committee, what questions do you have for the applicant? It looks like they agree that this is boring. Do I hear a motion? Alder Verveer.
Thank you. I happily move to grant.
And a second from Mr. Fletcher. Anyone in any discussion?
Can I just quickly say that Square Wine has become a downtown institution over the years that they've been on the square. I can't say enough good things about Andrea and her business, and I certainly am excited that she's not going anywhere except more or less a block over. over to East Main Street. So, Andrea, thanks for running such an excellent business, and certainly continued success in the new year at your new location.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. And thank you for working so closely with me too.
My pleasure.
Excellent. Thank you, Alder Revere. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none. Anyone in opposition to granting item 11, license transfer of Square Wine, indicate by raising your hand. Seeing no opposition, motion passes. For item 11. Item 12, report of recent calls for service. Captain Donahue, do you have anything to which you would like to call our attention?
Nothing notable tonight.
We like boring there also. Anyone have any questions for Captain Donahue? All right, item 13, summary of licenses issued. Mr. Verbeek, do you have anything to which you would like to draw our attention? Did I make him vanish? Oh, there he went. Okay, he can jump in later if he has anything. Anybody have any questions for Jim? Okay, item 14, extending issuance beyond the 90-day limit for Taco Local at 811 Williamson Street. And we do not have a registrant here. Committee, what's your pleasure? Does anybody need an explanation of what this is about? All right, I don't see any even gentle nods from, oh, I see a gentle nod. Okay. There is an ordinance that says if you're issued an alcohol license, you have to come pay for it and pick it up within 90 days so that people don't apply for a license, get it, but not pick it up, and then they're using up a license. But we can give them extensions and have done so with a number of places recently.
And it's actually 180 days. I made an error on the agenda when I wrote it. The council doubled the time from 90 to 180. And this is the applicant's first request.
Excellent. Mr. Fletcher.
Move approval, Mr. Chair.
Motion to approve, second from Mr. Grady. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none. Anyone in opposition of approving the extension for Taco Local, indicate by raising your hand. Seeing none, motion passes. And that brings us to adjournment. Do I hear a motion to adjourn? Mr. Fletcher, second from Ms. Westra. All in favor, indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed have the same privilege. Motion passes. ALRC meeting adjourned at 6:40 p.m.